I simply wanted to make sure that the people who were on the speakerphone and the media that's here were aware that President Brogan appeared under very difficult circumstances. His brother died this morning, and that's the reason he has to leave early. And I think it would be important that everybody be aware of that.
Well, thank you very much for reminding me of that. He was very trying to make a plane at 2:15, so 2:10. So if we acted as if we were trying to complete the interview, we actually were to accommodate that. So with that, I would like to ask our committee to begin our deliberations and invite comment from our members.
I would like to hear from some of the members who are not on the Board of Governors, to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
Marshall, you're about the only one. Jay.
I'm not on that.
Of course, I know.
AJ and
I don't mind sharing. Turn this so you can hear me well.
bring it up.
No, I'd be happy to share. I have to say, and Bill, I have to say to you, and Carolyn, to you, the credentials of both candidates is outstanding. And having had this opportunity to meet with them face to face, I believe that their institutional and process knowledge of higher education is outstanding. Both individuals clearly get it, and they are able to articulate their views, which I think in many ways, I heard a lot of different things that made me feel good. I heard reference to the relationship with universities and economic development. I heard relationship between universities and faculty and students, and those things really stood out to me. I think, I guess if I can get to kind of, what I also did was kind of took note. One thing I noticed in President Brogan's interview, he used the term "my students," and he did it more than once. And I thought that suggested sort of a deeper personal relationship with that process. I also heard him at the end talk about being hands-on, and I think that was that same kind of reflection. So, in a lot of things, I guess you look at a lot of factors as you go through this, and I believe two very well qualified individuals. But that's what stood out and to me is that personal, hands-on, feet on the ground perspective, I think, in their own words.
And a fifth grade teacher.
Yeah, I think it comes from that, but I also, it's interesting that to me today through, and both have gone through this, but both have gone through very significant careers in education and in other areas of leadership and professional development. But and maybe this ought to be AJ's line rather than mine. I hate to take it, but it really was. When I heard it was repeated reference to my students, not our students, not the university students. And I think if we have that kind of leader in the state university system, that's what it's all about. It gets back to that. What is this system about? It's about the students at the end of the day.
And if I may piggyback off that comment, Marshall, you brought up a great point. In fact, at the Florida Student Association's rally on the Capitol steps this past year, President Brogan was one of the only university presidents to actually show up and show his support for our students across the state of Florida. And it exemplifies what we need in a chancellor, someone that is willing to be there and to listen to the students and understand the students' needs and concerns in this state.
Arnett, would you like to go and then John?
Well, excuse me. I think they were both extremely qualified and will do the job well for the state. What I was a little disappointed with Dr. Chu was that he had a very limited perspective on the role of the faculty and sort of came in with a preconceived notion that faculty were essentially gatekeepers. He tried to refine that a little later on when we started talking about research and economic development and how the faculty play a role in both. He seemed to have an idea how he was going to do things.
I would ask you to please speak up if you would. Thanks.
Sorry.
It's Rick.
I cannot offend you, Rick, I'm sorry. Let me get much closer.
Chill.
Did you want to repeat very quickly what I just said? I was a little disappointed with the limited perspective of faculty's role that Dr. Chu had, although in some of the other discussional items, he brought out some of the other ideas that or issues that faculty deal with. Overall, I think President Brogan understands the system well, the role of faculty, and the challenges ahead. So I think that he is better qualified, in my opinion, at this point.
Shane?
Certainly. Well, first, let me step back for a second and thank Chairwoman Roberts. You did a fantastic job. I think so many people forget how hard putting something together like this is, the time commitment, the amount of work. But what you're searching for here is a Chancellor of State University Systems, one of the largest in the country, and you've heard a lot of folks talk about rebuilding the relationships, working with the legislatures. I think you had two excellent candidates, and I would also congratulate Mr. Funk for putting this together and for vetting many, many candidates, spending a lot of time on this and then bringing it to the search committee. I know this will be forwarded to the full Board of Governors for a final decision, and we're the committee just to make the next step or the next recommendation. But I also, like Marshall, took many notes, and what you heard was my students, and you heard him talk about the relationship with the legislature. You heard about tuition. President Brogan was able to really hammer on so many issues in such a short amount of time. But I think his relationships with the Board of Governors, with his Board of Trustees, with the students, like A.J. spoke about, here's a man of commitment who has shown that he is willing to be there for students, for faculty. He's met and worked with the governor's office on many, many occasions, and I think he has a very strong and powerful voice in the state of Florida. I think he would serve all of you well, and I will leave it at that, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Shay. Our committee, our Board of Governors, Tico?
I'll go ahead and begin. I also want to take a moment and congratulate you, Madam Chair. This was a great process, and notwithstanding the challenges of Sunshine, I think we were given some tremendous options, and both of these candidates were very, very strong. I think my distinction would have to be when the notes I took with Dr. Chu, the message from him was essentially a treatise on higher education and its role in our country, which was fascinating. It showed an incredible knowledge, an incredible history, an incredible track record. I looked at Frank Brogan's remarks as a treatise on higher education, its role in our country, and how it applies in the state of Florida, and the challenges and the battles that we face to work together as a system. I think at this delicate time in our state university system, our budgeting relationship with the legislature and with the universities and the boards of trustees, it is a time when we need that local office expertise as well as that national perspective. I think in this case, President Brogan brings both of those. I think his presentation was equally impressive on the scale of understanding the macro 30,000-foot view of education, higher education, its role in the developing economy of the state of Florida. And then he could bring it down to that 100-foot level of practical application day to day. This is what we need to do. I have a sense that he has a series of priorities, an order where things need to be done, and knows the players and can hit the ground running without any learning curve. And I frankly think at this point in time, with no disrespect to Dr. Chu, I thought he was an extraordinary candidate. I think at this point in time, in the position that we're in and the growth pattern that we're in as a board, I've reached the conclusion that I think Frank is probably the appropriate person to take the role.
Thank you, Tico. Charlie?
I certainly agree with everything that was said. There might have been or there might still be a time in our history where Rod Chu would make the ideal candidate. I think with the concerns that we have as a system, someone who has more knowledge of that system would be more appropriate at this time. And I say that I regret that our other two invited candidates were not here, because I think the amazing thing that Bill and Carolyn did was present us with four very different, unique individuals. And it would have been very interesting to see the contrast between them. But to me, at this point, I think Frank is clearly the choice.
Thank you. Those of you on the telephone, Ava?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did want to follow up on the comments that I heard from Governor Perez, because I'm probably very inclined to think that it's usually a good idea to have someone, who is coming from outside the system to kind of come in and bring in new ideas and innovative ways to tackle the challenges that that one is facing. Generally, I would think that someone from somewhere else could come in and they would have just a different perspective that would be good for the system. However, in this particular instance, I have to go against what I traditionally would believe, because I think that the fact that President Brogan has been involved in so many levels within our system, and the fact that what we've come to learn as members of the Board of Governors is that it's not just the university system acting alone, but it's the fact that we, at every level, need to kind of work together to make the system work. And I think his experience and knowledge in all those different levels is going to be very important to the success and the future of our state university system. So at this time, I think the fact that where we are, the strides that we've made, the challenges that are ahead, that it's important that we have someone with the experience level, the interest, and the commitment that I think that President Brogan has demonstrated. And so I would think that he would be the better person for the time and the situation that we found ourselves in at this point as a state university system.
Thank you, Ava. Rick? Speak up. He's left us again. I thought that was funny. Judy? Commissioner? They fade in and out.
Is Temple on there?
John Temple?
He was not going to stay for that.
Yeah, he was just on earlier. Chairman McDivitt?
Okay. I'm not going to repeat all of the right-on-point comments that everyone has made, but one of the things that I thought was very interesting about both of these candidates is that the content of their knowledge was almost identical, the things that they spoke about. And Frank did most of his in his opening statement, but he covered everything except for the one thing that I asked him about the national organizations that Dr. Chu did throughout his organization. So I feel very confident that we had two people that were equally qualified to do this job, and that, again, the timing is everything in life, as we know. And I think right now, given that we're on the upswing, hopefully, and that we've got the ear of our policymakers and our decision makers, that someone that's all ready to jump right in and continue on like there was no learning is very, very important. So I think Frank Brogan is the one at this point in time in our state.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Before we vote, I'd just like to make just a brief comment. I think you've heard enough from me during this process, but briefly thank both of these candidates. And Charlie, I agree with you in one way. The sunshine in this state has benefited the state more than not. I think overall the law has worked very well for our citizens. However, it does put pressure on people who have a job, who are in a position, and there may be pressure that if you go to that interview, you best get it, because you come home, it will be maybe a more uncomfortable situation. I think Bill Funk can say that. So these people come to us putting their future in our hands. Rod Chu he is respected not only in our country, but in the world globally as a leader in education. He's done great things. Today, his interview, I really could have listened to him for hours and learned from him. I think we all could. So I want to be very respectful of that. And also, Frank Brogan, here's a man that has had this beautiful career, has excelled in every position he's ever held, has done great things for the state of Florida, is a wonderful president, and he comes and sits here before us. And there's risk when you come. So I agree with everything everybody said today, and my inclination is the same as yours. And I would not have said this had you not said it ahead of me, but I think because of our time and the what our state is going through and our emerging system and our fiscal issues, I believe Frank Brogan is the candidate that will serve us best. After saying that, I think I respect Rod Chu and hope that our paths will cross again, because I believe he could do great things for our system and for any system. And thank him so much for participating. With that, I think it's appropriate, unless Bill Funk, you have a comment?
No.
I think it's appropriate. We have a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we recommend Frank Brogan to be Chancellor of the State University System of Florida.
Thank you, Chairman McDivitt. And a second from Charlie Edwards. Any comments, questions?
One last comment.
Yes, sir.
And
AJ.
the reason why is because I was quick to note on Marshall's comment. However, I want to thank Bill Funk and Associates. He came in when we were interviewing the various consultants, and he promised us that he would dedicate all of his time personally on this search. And I could recall our conversations about that, and we were somewhat unsure if anyone could dedicate their entire time to a search like we have here in the state of Florida. And I want to commend you for doing just that, and thank you for doing just that.
And I'd like to comment on Bill Funk, on his professionalism, and what a pleasure it is. I feel like as a brother, I'm afraid he's going to take my telephone number out of his telephone. We have talked so many times. And he's worked hard to build our applicants. So, Bill, thank you very much. I'm really going to miss you. If I call you, just answer. It'll just say hello.
I'll call the question. Sure. We can tell Frank before he gets on the plane.
Yeah, would you, we'll now have the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Unanimously now, we will recommend Frank Brogan as Chancellor of the University System to the full Board of Governors at our 4 o'clock meeting.
Right. Was that a unanimous vote, or was there a vote
That was
against
a
it?
late aye.
That was a late aye or a like sign aye?
I think it was a late aye.
It was a late aye because I had not asked for the
Okay.
unanimous. Is that correct?
On the
That's correct,
phone?
ma'am.
Yes.
That's correct.
That was Ava
Okay.
who said
Okay.
aye.
Okay.
A little
That's correct.
delayed.
You fade in and out, so we jump when we can.
Okay, great.
Yeah, would you- thank you very much for your participation. Congratulations. Meeting adjourned.